All right, everybody, good morning and welcome to yet another live stream from, lockdown, shutdown, curfewed Victoria, talking to the rest of the country who's moving around relatively freely. Today I'm joined with, and I'm really pleased to say, Isaac Jury from Tidy HQ. Isaac, welcome to the Sports Community live stream.
Thanks, Steve. It's wonderful to be here. I almost feel free.
You're in regional Victoria as opposed to Metro, so a little bit more flexibility than what we have in Metro, but still a little bit different to the rest of the country.
Absolutely. We're just on the fringe, so we're not far away from stage 4. We're in stage 3. Good fun.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things that Sports Community is always focused on is how do we make it easier for volunteers? And having spoken with yourself, we've had a very similar journey on different angles of this same question for many years. What is Tidy HQ and how does it make life for sports club volunteers easier?
Sure. So I started life as a volunteer on a bunch of committees, and I was very frustrated with that experience. Because each time I somehow had my hand up or didn't have my hand up, but I found myself being pulled onto a committee, I was very frustrated with that experience of handover and what was being handed to me to continue on the role of the previous person. And my day job was setting up these big IT systems for companies to get everything on one page, these big ERP systems like Salesforce and Microsoft and what have you. And they're big and heavy and expensive and complex to set up. And when I looked around my committees, they were all volunteers. We did it, during our lunch break and in the evenings and on the weekends and what have you. So we needed something super, super simple. And I went through a few iterations and I ended up being president of my football club and just started building what is now Tidy HQ. And it turns out I'm not the only one that has these sorts of disparate experiences joining and running a committee around the country and all over the world now.
So Tidy HQ, and people can check out Tidy HQ at tidyhq.com. So how does it make the life of a volunteer easier? What things does it cover?
Yeah, so it does an awful lot of things, mainly because the main job of the committee is quite extensive as well. So we cover everything from a contacts database or CRM through to communication, so email and sending out newsletters, event ticketing, financial management. So we do all the treasurer's bookkeeping. We handle memberships, the website for the organisation if they want, task management, role management, document storage, and we've got integrations into things like MailChimp as well, along with a few others like in the sports world, Sports TG or Stack Sports as they are now. It does an awful lot of things because that's what committees do.
So role management and task management, take me through that. How does it help with those really nuts and bolts sort of functions?
Yeah, so when I was president, I'd shoot from the hip and say, Steve, go pick up the balls on Sunday, and Isaac, you're picking up the beers on Tuesday, and Joe, don't forget to, have you got the shirts lined up for pre-season, all this sort of stuff. And it was rarely documented anywhere. And so the way that we'd end up managing it is each committee meeting, I'd try and remember everything that I said throughout the course of the week or over several weeks. And that was often a failing. And it also meant that I was relying on others to remember what tasks I'd given them with no reminders or anything. So what we do at Tidy is we set up roles so you can have unlimited number of roles. A role is president, secretary, treasurer, team manager, what have you. Then you can allocate individuals to those roles. So Steve, you're now the president. Congratulations. And we can allocate tasks to roles as well as individuals. And where that becomes really, really helpful, and I know you're hot on this, is sports clubs are really actually quite good in that they're very seasonal. Your football club has a pre-season, an in-season and a post-season. They're fairly defined things. And within those periods, there's fairly defined tasks as well that have to happen every single year or every season. So pre-season, we have to, get some coaches with equipment. We have to report to the local council, etc. Whereas this way, we could set up tasks that recur every year at a specific time. So I can walk into the club, or you as president can see exactly what needs to happen each year. So you're at least going in with some idea as to what's in front of you, as opposed to guessing.
And that's such a powerful thing, because one of the key weaknesses in sports club management is volunteers don't know what they don't know. So to have those steps laid out, and you're right, they're cyclical, and based off the season time and the financial year, typically, to have that there, and then linking towards linking to even the resources that support them is tremendously powerful for volunteers to come in, come out, and you can just roll them in, roll them out. So
yeah. We can also even print off those roles as well. So for the AGM, this is something that took a lot of time for me for whatever reason, but we can print off all the roles with all their responsibilities and who they're reporting to and all those sorts of things. So if you do get tapped on the shoulder at the AGM, you at least have an idea as to, okay, this is what the secretary has to do, etc.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's 3/4 of the battle of empowering volunteers. So is knowing what to do, who to ask, like what tasks do we need to ask for. So for those watching live online, welcome. Please feel free to ask Isaac any question about how you can make any role in your club easier, because that's what we're about. So I had a conversation with a very inexperienced administrator that's taken on a role in a club just this morning, actually. He rang me and he didn't really know what sort of technology functionality to put in. So he was asking me questions about, what's the best shop. So does Tidy HQ have a shop template that people can then add their merchandise, apparel?
Yeah, we certainly do. I suppose from where I sat, I was the token nerd at my football club, so I'd plug in lots of really expert type platforms. So I'd plug in, say, Shopify together with MailChimp, together with Eventbrite, and they'd all talk magically together.
Yes.
But I was the only tech nerd in my football club, and on all the other committees as well. And so what that turned out to be or mean was that it would all fall in a heap, or it did fall in a heap when I left the club, because no one could update the website because I was the only one that knew how to update WordPress. So what Tidy is that it doesn't have all the bells and whistles of a WordPress or a Shopify or what have you, but it gives you the baseline to do those jobs of being on a committee really, really well. And yeah, you can sell merchandise and you can have a history page on your website and things like that. And it means that anyone can update those bits and pieces rather than relying on someone with a high technical aptitude or something like that.
Yes, I absolutely. So I asked the person to send me through their list, and because I thought I knew that they were having this conversation, and I thought, well, what better way to ask the questions and the questions that I got. So this is genuinely an email that I received just this morning, actually, setting up benchmark club operations using. So Tidy HQ, a club membership, so it allows you to set up different memberships within your club?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have an integration with Sports TG now. So lots of the major sports like AFL and basketball use that system, and we can sync across their player registrations into our system. But you can also use Tidy as its standalone membership system. So you might have past player memberships, corporate memberships, as well as some sports definitely use us for player registrations as well, to keep track of it all. So we do all that, auto renewing as well, which is a big one for, say, past players as a revenue stream. So every year I get hit up by my club for another couple $100. I think it's the most expensive baseball cap I own. So we can handle all that, and we automate all the messaging that comes out of it as well for reminding Steve to pay for a membership and those sorts of things.
And so it's got the payment gateway in there as well. So we can just set up all those different types, link it to your website.
Yeah, so we integrate with Stripe, the Stripe gateway. We charge 1% on top of Stripe, so it ends up being 2.75% for that gateway. But it's all integrated, and then it goes to I can't read that, row 8, I suppose, the accounting piece. So because we're seeing all the transactions coming through the platform, we're automatically reconciling it to the treasurer in our finances area as well. So what we're trying to do is reduce the amount of time to administrate a club ultimately. So one of the stats that I often roll out is that the average club volunteer spends 11 hours running the club. We want to get that down to, a couple of hours at most, because no one went to the football club to be the treasurer is something that I say.
No, absolutely. And that's not an unrealistic option, because so many of these things, A, are cyclical, and B, we can use technology now to automate them, to facilitate them. So, for instance, if you've got, and I'll go back to your past players membership, if you're continually building that past players membership, then the technology underneath it can be generating the renewals and the reminders and just collecting that money, and it becomes a significant passive income. And I think this is a really strong fundamental fundraising strategy that clubs should be using now in COVID, is to connect to their past players, the group of people that's historically been part of the club, love the club, but are no longer connected. They're willing to, as you say, $200 for a baseball cap is
we've seen some great initiatives from clubs over COVID along those lines. So one of them that we saw was pay $20 for our season when our season starts again, and that $20 is for the bar or something along those lines. So by your commit to the 2020 season, even though it's been written off, $20, because it'll help the club in effect just get through, and you can use the $20 voucher or what have you next year when the season actually picks up again.
Yeah, absolutely. So the communication side of connecting with members and creating emails and linking into social media, what does Tidy HQ do there to help clubs communicate with their members?
Yeah, so we have an email communication system as part of it. So I suppose it's two sides. One is you can send out a newsletter blast, I suppose, to groups of contacts. So another big issue that I found with clubs is that they have a myriad of spreadsheets all over the place with all sorts of data, current players, past players, sponsors, attendees from various events and what have you. What Tidy does is that we can collate all those contacts and tag them accordingly. So you can really target those newsletters to various areas of your database. And like I mentioned it previously, that we are also syncing up with MailChimp as well. So if you want to get fancy, or if you have a marketing person that can do up those sort of fancier email marketing messages. I was talking to Uni Blues, a big amateur AFL club here in Victoria this morning, about newsletters, and you can use it sort of for different areas or segments of your contacts. So for the big monthly newsletter, you use MailChimp, and for the regular, smaller emails, you might use Tidy.
Yeah, so if you again, for creating emails to your past players or your sponsors or those sorts of things. So let me just go back to the list of our intrepid administrator that sent me through, because
I think accounting was next.
Yeah,
so,
yes.
I know that's something that's near and dear to your heart. So we do a financial module. So for me, I'm not an accountant. In fact, Xero and MyOb just fry my brain a little bit, even still today. But I do know how to read a P&L, and I do know how to run a football club's bank account. Money in, money out. What's the net position of the club? Who do we owe? Who owes us? It's should be relatively simple. So that's the level of accounting that Tidy does. We're building an integration in with Xero to push all that information up to Xero. So lots of clubs that are turning over, many hundreds of thousands of dollars that might employ people and have payroll and have assets and liabilities need a Xero in their life. But for most clubs, they don't need all the singing and dancing that a Xero offers. And we collect tax. We allow you to do your BAS statements and so on from our cash book accounting reports.
Yep.
And it does a fine job. The big difference, I suppose, is that from a governance perspective, we can have transparency through those finances. So one of my frustrations as the president was the treasurer was an accounting type nerd and said, whenever I said, where are we at with the finances? Who owes us? Who do we owe? All those sorts of questions. It was she'll be right. Don't worry about it. We're okay. We're on track. This sort of stuff. Whereas I found out for volunteers, there's criminal liabilities for not knowing those numbers. And every year we see something in the paper about some volunteer running off with the money.
So in defense of us treasurer nerds, it's normally the other way, to be fair, is that the treasurers are trying to manage the club in their head. Yeah. And the committee often doesn't really have any desire to know and working on the she'll be right, mate sort of scenario. So you get both of those scenarios. But I mean, treasurer is one role absolutely that you can go down from 11 hours to 1. So you do a little bit of work at the start of the year. So does Tidy allow you to put budgets and cash flow projections in place?
Yeah, we have budgets so that you can plug in your budget and then that compares against the actuals for the year as well, obviously all in real time because the treasurer's either dropping in the deposits as they come in or the system's automatically reconciling those numbers.
Yeah, so if we look at lots of transactions and let's just say it's membership, apparel,
events,
we do that online. We set up the budget at the start of the year in Tidy HQ. You collect our money online, whatever. Then there's really not a cash that a club collects now, even bar and canteen. We can be using point of sale. So the money goes from the pocket of the member or the supporter straight into the club's bank account. The transaction goes from whatever system, the membership, sponsorship, whatever point of sale, into Tidy, into the reports, against the budget, and the committee, the information that's presented to the committee is automatically created. So the life of a treasurer, the administration, accounting, reporting side almost goes to zero once you set it up. And then the treasurer's job then becomes, well, we expected this, we got this, why is the difference and what do we need to do to respond, and empowering the committee with that information. So there's so many different ways. To save that out, I mean, it seems like a throwaway line, 11 down to 1 hour, but it's absolutely possible with knowledge, which is what we do, and technology, which is what you do. And so the other area is annual general meetings and committee meetings. So how do you make their life easier for volunteers in those areas?
So if you've been on a committee, if you're probably watching this, you understand the pain of being in a committee meeting. They go for, in my opinion, they go for far too long, far too often. And I think that's a result of, again, poor structural, poor processes, really, and democratizing those agendas and those minutes. So what we have a meetings module that we, the secretary typically sets up the agenda, can send it all out. Steve and Isaac can just click a button in their email saying if they're attending or apologizing for the meeting, and the system will record that. Next bit, and we integrate in with Zoom as well for this. We dropped that in just as COVID was starting. So you can run your committee meetings online with Zoom. And what they do, the secretary shares the screen, either if you're in person at the club on the big screen, most clubs have a big screen now, or on Zoom they share the screen and they run through the agenda. And the reason that they go to plan is because everyone can see the agenda and the minutes being recorded in real time. So instead of Isaac skipping off and talking about whether he likes red balls or blue balls, the meeting stays focused on we need to purchase 50 balls. Yeah. And the decisions are recorded. Any attachments can be attached. Any tasks are recorded. And as soon as the minute taker hits save and close, the system will format all the meeting minutes. It's in an ASX type standard with summaries of matters arising, all the decisions, all those action items that dropped out have already been sent to people. So people have emails in their inbox saying, Steve, you've got to pick up 50 balls. And from a governance point of view, that job is done. So if you've ever been a secretary and had to record meetings, you'll know that that job takes hours and hours and hours, plus the meeting time of transcribing your notes and putting it into Word and PDFing it, etc.
And then what takes hours is when you're trying to go back and find the minutes to a meeting that happened maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, and they're on someone's computer or on their email or something where it's the knowledge is, again, if anything, it's a knowledge management system and getting the knowledge into one place. So secretaries and committee members can roll into the role of committee, and they can go back and read the minutes of the previous 12 months, and that gives them a good feel of where they are, because we don't want to come in, go down in capacity. We want to go up and
Correct, yeah.
use the enthusiasm of the new committee fully empowered. So, yeah.
Yeah, again, I talk about how do you attract and retain volunteers. You can't attract volunteers by saying this is an 11-hour-a-week job, but you can attract volunteers if you say, here's a tool. It's really easy to be secretary. All you have to do is fill out the agenda, send the invites, record the minutes, hit save and close. Your job's done. That's it. I won't ask you to do anything more for the rest of the year. Just run our meetings for the year. That's how I grew our committee from the token 5 up to 17, was that I could really delegate easily all these sorts of jobs and make that job easier. My secretary, who said I'm only going to do it for a year, he stuck around for several years because I made that job so easy for him to be the secretary of minute taking, that he eventually said to me in year 2, is there anything else I can do? Which as a president, you never hear that. And it's the most amazing experience ever, because he was a guy that was playing football and all those sorts of things on field, and swore to me off field he didn't have the time for it, and then coming back to me in a year and a half saying I've actually got enough time to fill out some grants or find sponsors or what have you.
Yeah.
Amazing tick in the box. And my biggest problem with the meetings is that I go to the leagues, the sport leagues, and show it to them, and they say, oh, actually, we should use this ourselves. Maybe we'll use this ourselves for a year and then we'll tell the clubs about it. So that's one of my major problems at the moment with meetings, but much loved area.
Yeah, cool. Well, Isaac, congratulations. I know it's been we've spoken many times over the last 8 years on a very similar journey. So congratulations on creating such a wonderful resource for clubs and volunteers coming at it purely from how do you make it easier to run your club. And you're right. You know, we don't go to our club so we can work in the canteen or be a treasurer or be a committee. We go there to enjoy the people and enjoy the activities that our club offers. So you make that a lot easier. So I thank you. I thank you very much for sharing Tidy HQ with us today.
Thanks, Steve. As always, a great pleasure.
Very good. Very good. No, I learned a lot. So, and hopefully everyone that that was watching did learn a lot and watches this video does. I know our committee member that sent me the email, I know they're online at the moment. So I hope that answers your questions and it gives you a good foundation for moving forward into the role that you've just got. So, and that's really exciting that you can empower someone with little or no knowledge in the roles that they're moving into to do them really successfully in their club. So, Isaac, as always, thank you very much. Tomorrow we've got eSport Friday, which will be interesting because I normally have no idea what Cameron talks about. Coming at it from the novice, I do. Next week, we have a whole range of interviews, which are really exciting. Discovering sport differently, or doing sport differently, Wednesday. We've just got a great interview, which I'll confirm a little bit later on. And then more great guests like your good self during the week. So, Isaac, thank you. To those that are watching, thank you for being part of our sports community.